When we write a C program, sometimes we need to get the input from the user during the runtime and also write the output to the screen to show the user what the current status of the program. Here, the predefined functions scanf and printf can help with doing so. The scanf and printf function will take numbers of parameters, and the first parameter for both of them is a format parameter, which is defined as a string or a pointer to characters. Another thing I want to mention is that we put const in front of the format parameter. The const means constant to make the parameter unchangeable. So for doing that, we want to ensure the compiler that we want to change the value which we passed into the function. It is a good habit in C programming language. So if you are pretty sure that, so when you get some parameters from a function, you only read the content from the parameter and never change it. So you'd better to place a const before the parameter. So later, if you mistakenly change the parameter, the compiler can notice you that you have changed some parameter as a constant. Then let's see a real example here. So we have defined two variables. One is a string. The other one is an integer. So then we call the printf function. For this function, we just pass a string to it as a format parameter. We did not pass any variable to it. So the string enter a value can directly print out on the screen. The format parameter for the next function scanf is %s and %d. From the definition list on the left side, so we know that the scanf function will request two inputs from the user, and the first input is a string, because here is %s, and the second input is an integer, because here is a %d. And the following two parameters are corresponding to %s and %d, so which are used to hold the values that type in from the user. However, the following parameters have to be pointers or address that can help the program store the input values to some memory space. For the str, for this one, it is already a pointer which points to the beginning of a string. However, the variable I is an integer variable, which is not a pointer. So we need to get the memory location of this integer. So we can add a single and sign in front of it to get the address of this integer variable. Just as we already discussed in the previous slides. For the last printf function, it is different from the first printf function. This printf function will print two variables on the screen. So you can see here, in C program, we have to leave the corresponding format parameters within the string. For example, in this string, we want to add two variables into the string. The first one is a string as a %s, and the second one is an integer as a %d. So the following parameters will map to each one of them. And the one thing I would like to mention is that the following parameters don't have to be pointers in the printf function. For example, you can pass such integer variables directly. For example, here we can directly pass I into printf function. When we use a Linux system, sometimes we will use the command line user interface to do some operations. For example, we can copy a file through command line, such as cp f1, f2, to duplicate f1 to another file with name f2. So later you may use this feature in your C program. Then you may wonder how you can do that. So actually it is called command line arguments. So basically in C program, this can be done by passing values from command line to program. So normally when we define the main function in C program, we don't pass parameters into the main function. However, if you want to use the command line arguments, you can make the main function to take these two parameters. And the first parameter is an integer type, and the second one is a string array. So actually, they have a special meanings related to command line arguments. For argc, for this one, it means the number of arguments the user passed from the command line. For argv, it is a pointer array, and each pointer points to each passed argument. So let's see the example we just mentioned. This is CP F1, F2. So for this example, the argc will be equal to 3. And the first argument, argv0, will be equals to the program name, which is a CP. And the second argument, argv1, will be equals to the first file name, f1. And the third argument, argv2, will be equals to the second file name, which is f2. The actual argument is started from argv1, because argv0 is the program name, and each argument is separated by white space. Then some students may ask that, so okay, Dr. Wang, how about if I pass a sentence as an argument into the command line? So can I do that? So surely you can do that. For example, in your command line, you have a compiled file name called a.out. And also an argument test, white space test. So there is a white space between the two tests. So actually you can code the two tests to make them as a single argument. And then you can type command line as dot slash a.out and code test white space test code back to run the program. So for this command, the number of arguments will be equals to 2. And the argv0, the first argument, will be a.out. And the second argument, argv1, will be code test white space test code back. So if you want to know more information and examples about command line arguments, so you can check the link down below.